Here. Okay, so let's start. Okay. 大家好，我先快的介绍一下中文，介绍一下，因为我们一般的都是中文的讲座。今天呢，我们主要是讲英文，因为我们也邀请了很多的年轻人过来听。今天的讲座呢，讲一个很重要的内容是，对于我们这个自闭症以及神经多元化这个年轻人的就业问题，这是一个巨大的挑战。那么我们今天非常有幸的请到了这个 Daivergent 公司的创始人共同创始人及 CEO 戴先生过来。我们原来在纽约请他过来向纽约的家长进行过一次宣传，今天非常荣幸。那么今天我们的主要的3个协作单位呢，是第一个是 AFI， 我们这是主要的 AFI 是 Alliance for Impact， 是面向于美国华人的这个公益组织我们特别在 AFI 当中设立了3个为特殊需要家庭服务的这个组织，一个是为自闭症，一个是多动症，另外一个是抑郁症那么我们这次呢也是由 AFI 主要来发起这个活动，另外一个是美国华人自闭症联合会，这是我们去年在美国成立的也是一个非公益组织。这个公益组织的主要目的是想联合一下在学术界研究的学者，以及跟我们的自闭症社区、华裔自闭症社区的一些相关的一些活动。那么将来我们也会更多的开展。那么最后一个呢，是一个很小型的，我们在纽约为家长成立的一个叫 Project Ready。Project Ready 的主要目的也就是针对于转型的这个转型年纪，就是准备从中学出来的，而且呢功能呢又是中低功能的自闭症的孩子，包括其他发育障碍的孩子怎么样进行就业的准备。那么这个组织主要是面向于在纽约市周围的华裔家庭目前。OK， 那么我们就是今天呢主要是以英文讲座，但是如果是你有问题，有中文问题，你可以发在 chat 里头，我们可以帮你翻译。OK 那么前面呢主要是以戴先生演讲为主，后面呢有一些问题呢，你可以在 chat box 里面提问，或者是举手发言都可以，我们留出来充分的时间。Okay, now I'm just to repeat a little bit in English. Okay, so welcome everybody. Today we have a very good seminar here, focus on the employment for the IDD population, young population, the challenge and also the potential there. Okay, now we are very glad to invite Mr. Dai coming here again, because we're working with him before to the New York families with children with autism on the autism spectrum. Now we have 3 different organizations together. First one is AFI. AFI is a nonprofit organization we're serving for the Chinese American population. And inside that, we have 3 groups supporting special needs family, include autism, include ADHD, include depression. And second one is the Chinese American Association for the Autistic Community. This is a new organization we built up last year. The purpose is to combine the research and the scholars in the academic area. Then we combine with the efforts from the Chinese community with the autism and also development disability children. Okay, so the last one is a small organization called Project Ready. This is a parent initiated nonprofit organization. We serving for the family with children on the transition age, which means they are ready going to leaving the school, going to society, and then we particularly focus on the ability with limited ability, means maybe the medium and the lower. And also we try to help lots of family without the English language ability, because we have lots of immigrants here. But this one is mainly serving for the families around the New York City area. Okay, but hopefully we can get more experience, then we can help more family across the country. So today's audience is mostly coming from everywhere from the United States, and we are particularly invite the parents, invite their children, their young, on the either in the high school or either in the college, coming to listen to the one. Maybe we have find out more opportunity here. Okay, so I'm stopping here, and now we welcome Byran Dai. Dai 先生, Ms. Dai is coming to give us a speech here. Okay, you can share your PowerPoint.
I will. And B, thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing so much about the amazing organizations and for having the opportunity to speak with everyone today. 谢谢你们. I shared a brief chat as well. My name is Byron, and I wanted to just put a little bit of information about what I would talk about today. But I don't want this to just be me talking at everybody here. I would love if you have questions to put them into the chat, as well as to speak and provide your questions during the different breaks that I put throughout the presentation. I will be very honest. This is a fairly detailed, and there's a lot of information in here. And my goal was to try to talk about free resources as well as good value resources, which are designed to support families who are thinking about employment. So really, this is a presentation that is focused around transition as being called out, as well as focusing on families who have someone in college, or have someone who might be in high school, or is about to finish high school, or someone who might be an adult. So if you're somebody who is here and you have someone that's younger, there's still going to be value in this presentation. But today, really the focus as being called out is that I want to talk about what it looks like after school ends. And the reason I want to talk about that is I'm actually joined by my brother today, who's one of our attendees. So this is a photo of me and Brandon. We're also a family who is in the autism community. And so when we think about also what are some of the opportunities and some of the different services that are available for adults with autism, I think one of the common feelings that families have is that there's just not a good feeling about what are the good resources, as well as what should we be doing, now that we're leaving a very structured environment within education. Excuse me, and I'm just recovering from a cold, so if my voice is a little deep, just let me know. I'll try to slow down. But just to give us a little bit of structure for today's presentation, what I want to do is to do three things with you. I want to talk about the general strategies that we have seen have been successful with supporting people with autism, support their search for employment. The second bullet is I want to actually give as many resources as possible to you, where if you are a college student or you're a high school student who's listening, there are going to be resources that you can use today to start to do career exploration and start to think about employment. If you are a parent and you're trying to learn about this for your child, there will be resources here as well. And I know it's a very broad audience of teenagers, as well as college students, as well as even adults who are older. So I'm going to do my best to try to be very broad in giving as many resources as I can into each age category. And then the last thing I'll do is talk about Daivergent. I actually don't want to make this my focus, because this is not about trying to sell anything. This presentation is more about what are some of the resources that we have seen adults who are on the autism spectrum tell us have been the most useful resources that they've had in their job search. So as I go through this presentation, I will use person-first language, but just so you know, when we work with the population, we will refer to either identity first or person first, depending on preference. And now I just to kind of give you a little bit of who I am, because right now I'm just a person on the screen. My name is Byron, and I'm the co-founder and the CEO for a company called Daivergent. And Daivergent is a technology company. Really, it's the first technology company that is focused on providing job training and job readiness for the autism and disability populations. And so the way that we do that is that we have about 40 coaches and instructors who provide dedicated job training, life skills training, and social skills training to about 600 families across the US. And on top of that, we also work with employers who recruit from this population after they've been trained. And so really what we say is we are trying to build the first pipeline between a very high potential population and employers who are trying to really bring in more neurodivergent talent. When I go through this presentation today, I'm going to start really broad and talk about general strategies and then go into more specific details. At the end of each section, I'm going to pause myself, and I would love to have any questions come up from anyone on the chat, or have anyone even just unmute themselves and ask questions. And I know you're probably monitoring, so I might lean on you to let me know if somebody has a question, so I can pause myself. But why don't we dive right in? And I will do my best to not keep this too long, since it is a little late for people on the East Coast. I'm actually New York based as well, as is my family. And I thought what I could do is just start with maybe a very simple story about a high school student. This could be just any high school student that we work with, and give you a sense of the kind of challenges that families encounter when it comes to preparing their loved one for employment and for transition. So this is a 14-year-old named Lisa. She's an autistic self-advocate. She's also a high school student. But everything I say here is also applicable for an 18-year-old, a college student, somebody who might already be working. These are still going to be strategies that can be used by anybody. But just to give you some information about Lisa, she has a moderate learning disability, but she's very creative. She doesn't really know what her goals are for work. She's finishing her freshman year. She has an IEP, and she also is intending to use the extended school year, which means that if anyone here is still earlier in high school, this is about giving a student a chance to continue in education up to 21 or 22 years old. And so what's happening right now is that her IEP team is trying to think about how do we start to include employment into her individualized plan. And so a question that we always hear from parents is, is 14 too early? Is 18 too early? Is 21 too early? Is 12 years too early? Is there ever a time it's too early for Lisa and her family to be thinking about employment? Well, the answer is no, it really isn't. And I will also give one more quick clarification. Lisa is someone who has what we'd say might be moderate or low support autism. And so I know there are families also on this call who may be supporting somebody who might be higher support. If that's the case, these strategies will still apply, but please feel free to give me an email or message me after the conversation, because we can give you some specific tips on people who have high support needs on how we can think about employment for them. So with Lisa, as we said, it's never too early, it's never too late. What a family should really start doing is introducing the idea of employment as part of a set of small steps. So we call this socialize the idea of work. And what we put here is 3 very common examples that families have used to help prepare somebody for employment. Number 1 is to have that person be responsible for small tasks. So Lisa, she has a cat at home. The responsibility for her is to care for that cat. She may also have specific chores and have an allowance tied to them. And more importantly, she may also have the opportunity to volunteer. This volunteer piece is really important because it's one of the very few activities that are available in the community that don't require really an age cutoff, but which still gives a accurate representation of what it's like to have a job. You have to go in to work to a place, you have to sign in your name, you have to follow directions, but it's a safer space to be able to start to explore what does it look like to have structure in your day to complete a task. So if we use Lisa as an example, she might actually follow a schedule. She's going to practice a schedule because she's going to go every Saturday at 11 a.m. and take care of a dog. So that is a really great way to start to get that idea of employment transition into her routine. Now, if you're a parent who's listening to this call, or maybe you're someone who's a family member, what you should also be doing is taking the time to really observe the skills that you see your child having. You should be asking your school staff. You should be asking any family member who interact with your child on a day-to-day basis to actually note those skills down. Now, this could be creativity. This could be physical ability. This could be technical ability. Why do you have to do that? It's because these skills are actually used by state agencies who are in charge of providing employment. And I'm going to share about one called vocational rehabilitation in a moment. But the earlier you start to document those skills, the more information those state agencies will have to start to do their vocational assessments. And they'll be much better equipped to give your child a way to, for them to create an individualized plan for them as quickly as possible. So in Lisa's case, her parents noticed that she's actually sketching a dog that she took care of. She has she has her own art book, and those are really beautiful drawings. And so they had that conversation about, have you ever thought about what is it like to maybe turn that into some kind of a career? The next tip that we have is it's not about a single family working by themselves. What we noticed in the most successful families who have successful employment outcomes is that they've tapped into their community. The specific way that you should think about this is every personal and professional resource that you may know or may have can serve as a professional role model for your child. We call this a network inventory. A network inventory is literally just you sitting down and actually just writing out everyone that you have in your life that you're connected to. It really is just that straightforward. But a network inventory is so important because from that list, you can start to see the overlaps with the skills that you've recorded. So let's use Lisa again. It turns out Lisa, they actually have a good friend, a family friend who is an artist. And so what happens is Lisa is able to use that network inventory to have an informational interview. The earlier you can start to build this into the routine to socialize what it means to be working, means that it gives you more time to start to introduce activities and different services that can help your child achieve that goal. So those informational interviews, the reality is many adults or high schoolers or college students, it may be a bit more difficult. And so this is actually a good opportunity for a parent or a family to be able to think about, who do I know that I can start to create those informational connections to. Now, here's going to be probably the biggest and most repetitive point I'll make tonight. I think most people on this call are in the US, and maybe many of you are thinking about Medicaid or DDD or other services that you can access in your community, or Social Security as a way to get income for your loved ones. There is an agency called Vocational Rehabilitation, or VR, or Voc Rehab. I feel like I see some people who are already nodding. Think of vocational rehabilitation as a separate benefit from Medicaid. And all it does is provide funds for families to receive job training, job placement support, soft skills training. So in Lisa's case, let's say Lisa lives in Phoenix. She's in Arizona. Lisa's family might actually learn about vocational rehabilitation through her school. But the reality is that most families actually have to discover it by themselves. So for any of you on the call who don't know about voc rehab or VR already, congratulations. Today is the day that you'll be introduced to it for the first time. Some of you may already have experiences with VR, and they might have been negative. And what I would say is that, unfortunately, it can be common to have a bad experience with VR the first time. And this is a reminder to just try and try again. With vocational rehabilitation, they apply to that agency. And what that agency does is it actually provides a person to evaluate Lisa and see where is she going to be capable of holding a job. So when you enroll in vocational rehabilitation, what they do is they help you identify your job goals. They give you funding for training, and even in some cases, they can give you funding for college. They can provide support through technology. They can even send you equipment or subsidies to cover the cost of those products. And they also allow you to build skills, even in advocacy and soft skills. So what we found is that Lisa, because she went into voc rehab, she learned about a career in graphic design. This is marrying her passion for drawing with some of the skills that her parents observed. And because she had some experience volunteering, she didn't have a resume that was completely empty. So it was a great place for her to start. I think when it comes to, and this is maybe a little bit more applicable to anyone in high school, but it could also apply to folks in college. You need to think about making that learning experience a priority. It's not an overnight activity that those skills or that job will come. It's going to take time to build those skills. And it's actually why many, many people say that if you can start the vocational rehabilitation process as soon as possible, that's going to give you the biggest leg up with getting services and be able to realize the goals that you have for your family. So let's talk about Lisa again. So far, she volunteered at the animal shelter. That gave her a sense of time management that helped her build some initial skills around interacting, with others. Her family then helped her do an interview with an artist to learn a little bit more about that profession. And then they took that next step. They applied for VR. She was able to get benefits. She met with a counselor. The counselor found that she had this skill set around graphic design. And so what VR does is it actually connects her to a community organization, just like the ones that you're already involved in. That service provider is what we call that organization. There are providers that specialize in almost every career area. Divergent is actually a service provider in Texas and Arizona, and we focus on jobs in IT, graphic design, customer service, and business operations. In Lisa's case, she's going to find a provider who really helps her focus on graphic design and also has a specialty in autism. And in doing that, she starts to really make great progress on that IEP. She's on track to really attain independence and support herself. Now, what was the purpose of that whole presentation? That whole section. It's that when I start to go into this next section, and we talk about really specific resources and online virtual materials that you can access, it's worth keeping in mind that this is a process. Employment is not just getting a job. It's everything around it. So when we have this conversation tonight about what it means to get my son, my daughter, myself into a career, you should be always thinking about it as a journey, and that you are somewhere on this journey, and that, like everyone before you, this is a journey that is not linear. It's going to be a winding one. It can be, you might encounter many obstacles. But what I've shared here is some of the tips that we've seen from the people who have made it through the journey. They have gotten to the end. They found a career that really fits, and they've gotten the training to be able to attain the accommodations needed to be able to thrive. And that is something that I want for every single person on this call. So before we get too much further, because this next section is going to be about resources, I'd love to pause and see if there's any questions or if there's anything I can answer just about the general framework of how families can start to evaluate employment and how people on the spectrum can try to go after employment. I don't know if there's any questions, but I'll pause myself for a few minutes to see if anyone might want to answer.
Yeah, that's great. So I think one is saying is because we're talking about different area, different state, different city. One thing is I think the name somewhere is different, right? I believe that somewhere it's called DDS, somewhere it's called DDD. Like in New York, we maybe call Access VR.
Exactly.
Right. So the name is not the same way, right? So that's what we're looking at.
Exactly. I think that's a very good call out. I use an example here of Arizona. Arizona, they call their Medicaid office DDD. They call their vocational office DES. So to anybody on the call, Bing is right. When I talk about vocational rehabilitation, this is actually a standardized term across the U.S., but the agency that it's located under may be different. Same with DDD. DDD it stands for Division of Developmental Disability. So there are states such as in Arizona, as well as in Phoenix, as well as in New Jersey, where that might be what it's called. But then you have other states like New York, where it's like OPWDD, or where you have other agencies. So just keep in mind, when I talk about these agencies, I'm really talking about two different entities. The first is Medicaid. Second is vocational rehabilitation. These are two distinct programs.
So when you, for example, when you're in New York State, if you're applying for VR service, do you need a certain requirement, ages, testing, maybe eligibility, something like that?
Correct. And so what this is where it gets a little tough to do specific advice, because every state will set its own requirements. So in New York, the agency is called Access VR. And what the requirements typically are is that it's not just for people with disabilities or people with autism. It's actually it's really for anybody who has an impediment to employment. So what they will do is they will look for any documentation. And so you might think that this could be anything such as previous clinical notes or IEPs that someone may have if they're already an adult. It will also be diagnostics. So any information from the past medical history for your family. All that is used to do what's called an order of selection. States in general either have a wait list for services or they don't. But regardless of whether they have a wait list or not, the counselor, who is the government employee that actually evaluates the person for eligibility, the counselor is going to decide whether this person is the highest need, moderate need, or low need. And that's going to be based off of the documentation provided. I say all this to say that there's not a specific, if you do this, you're in, but that usually if you demonstrate a significant impediment to employment, of which autism is recognized by most states as being a significant impediment to employment, that's usually the qualifier for getting somebody eligible for VR benefits.
So I think so. What from your information here is that if a family looking for the resource, first one, they should look locally, right? The locally, because every state, every city may be different. Even maybe district is different too. So how they can looking the locally? What kind of resource you can recommend it?
Yeah, I think the local resources. So this is also going to depend on the age of the person. So if you are somebody who is currently in high school, unsurprisingly, almost all of your consultations will be with the school administration and the staff in that district. There are what I may call out is that there are some communities that have nonprofits that do service coordination. There are also organizations called American Job Centers, AJC. So if you look for an American Job Center, these are federally funded agencies,
Mhm.
which can help to coordinate services for
Mhm.
families that
Mhm.
have an impediment to work.
Mhm.
So this is maybe a long way of saying that
Mhm.
I would talk to a school if I
Mhm.
had someone in high school. If you're a college student, you
Mhm.
should talk to your student accessibility office.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you're somebody who's already graduated from college and you're a young
Mhm.
adult or you're transition age,
Mhm.
then really what you want to be talking to is vocational rehabilitation. And
Mhm.
those offices, they are almost always local offices within cities.
Mhm.
I wish I could give better advice beyond just go to your state's
Mhm.
type in your state name and then type vocational rehabilitation
Mhm.
and then type apply, because that's usually what we see
Yeah.
families do to start the process.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very good. Of course, the another way is you're always looking for the family parents which have the older children than yours. Then you can looking for, hey, what are you guys doing? Right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I think that's what's great thing is that you have this organization here, which is families leaning on families.
yeah,
I would say if maybe above all else, try to tap into these local networks and try to talk to families who've been through this already. What I'm trying to do is just give some just general advice in the
yeah,
event that you are a family who's just exploring this for the first time.
yeah. Great. Thank you. So I think we can continue, or you want to take a rest because I don't think you feel comfortable.
No, we can. Oh no,
tired yet.
no,
Okay.
no, we can definitely continue. I just wanted to make sure if anyone had any
Yes.
questions, they could jump in. But
Yeah.
yeah, please sure put them in the chat.
No
Because
problem.
this next section will be a fairly interesting one, because I always get asked by parents as well as from self advocates, who are autistic themselves. They say, "Well, is there anything I can do right now?" Great, thank you. I can volunteer, sure. I can go to BR. I can do this. I can apply, sure. But it's Thursday, right? It's Thursday night. What can I do at home? And I actually really appreciate the enthusiasm to have both short-term and long-term interventions. So what I'm going to share here is just some of the short-term interventions that folks can start to use today. So that when you leave this presentation, you have both a framework for how you can start to make progress in the short term with some of these resources, as well as set yourself up for a sustainable long-term success with something like VR. So we talked to 100 people who are in the autism community. We asked them, what did they use, to be successful? And what we found is that the three big areas where they had the greatest need were independent living, employment, and socialization, basically friendship. What I wanted to do is just share some of the specific resources with each three categories. This is a fairly dense part of the presentation, so I'm going to actually go a little quick, just for the sake of not boring everybody on the call. But I want to start with the independent living. And so for this section, the way I've done it is I've tried to split it into 3 different age brackets. What are the resources that you can access today if you're 14 and 17 years old, which is more like high school? If you're between 18 and 21, which is more like a college student, as well as if you're over the age of 22 already. And even though I'm bracketing by age, any resource that I talk about within like an age category can easily be used in any other age category. So don't think of these as like, oh, I'm 22, I can't do anything in the 14 and 17 group. No, you absolutely can. So when it comes to independent living, this is all about what we call setting the groundwork. So this is about sort of getting somebody prepared to experience what it's like to be living independently. And we sort of see 3 themes, which is keeping tidy, starting the habit of good habits, and also getting into what does self-sufficiency mean. Let's start with this is just like a list of some of the specific examples that we have in our catalog that we use to help folks to achieve that groundwork setting. So there are many YouTube videos, there are many great resources online, as well as gamified strategies to help somebody learn laundry, clean a room, make change. There's also apps that have been very successful with helping to build routines. A major one is called Habit Bowl. Using that app, you can do something like create a routine around a sleep schedule or having a way to calm down after a day has been tough. And then finally, this is just an example of how someone can start to explore self-sufficiency. It might be about beginning with a microwave recipe, getting familiar with cooking safety, or even having an exercise to practice buying food and then making change from purchasing. And so this is just to kind of show you what this section is like. We just list here some of the different tools that have been highlighted as being very useful from our population. So habit wall, this is great because every time you do something on your habit, you essentially gain points for it. So this is just a way to gamify building those routines. And here's just like an example of some of the different worksheets that are that exist, which can be used either by if it's somebody who is younger, to use as a way to start to familiarize. What is it like to start to prepare a grocery list? How does one make sure they can navigate the public transportation, or even start the exploration of driving to be able to purchase and buy food for themselves. I'll say again that this is our attempt to try to be as wide as possible. If I'm saying anything here that you already know, I do apologize, and I appreciate you bearing with me. If I'm saying something that might go over your head, I also appreciate you bearing with me. This is us trying to really be as wide as possible with supporting folks who have low autism support needs, moderate, as well as high support needs. So that's some of the resources that have been successful for someone who's 14, 17. Now, when you get to like college, 18, 21, it's all about what? Finances, how to start to maintain where you live, as well as getting more organized. So we see things like bank accounts, credit, being able to prepare meals, be able to maintain a household, as well as time management becoming way more important. So the resources that have been quite successful have been a lot of these more interactive experiences. There's a great tool called Bonsai. It's a sponsored product from the NFL and from Visa. And it's actually a free financial literacy course that is built into a game that has been very engaging. So after this presentation, I'll send this to Bing. Bing will make it available to everybody. So no need to have to like come here and just like copy things down. I'll make sure I send this presentation. And then we actually linked to a few different great YouTube channels and really great websites, which are all focused on how to maintain a house, ironing a shirt, unclogging a drain, how to use public transportation, cooking on a stove, even driving, because we know many families want to see their children drive. We know many people who are here, who are self-advocates, want to be able to drive. So there are these different tools that are available for that. And then finally, we have some great articles and applications that can be used to be able to make schedules and routines very natural. So this is just a screenshot of what Bonsai is. It really is a great online financial education tool. You might have already used it in some of your schools, but it's only accessible by invitation only. We've included a link that you can use to be able to bypass the invitation. Habitica, which is a really interesting resource. This is actually turning the experience of making a routine into a game, an RPG game. So if you're anyone who likes D&D, or if you're someone who likes any kind of online gaming, these type of images will be very familiar. It's actually a very clever way to build routine. And then we always find what's kind of interesting. So as I mentioned, this is actually what people who are autistic told us they used and that they enjoy. So some of our self-advocates have been clear. They've said sometimes it's just about having virtual reality or having these different experiences where you can kind of simulate the experience of driving first. So this is just like one of the simulation games. I can't endorse any specific game, but say city car driving, this is on Steam. It's something that can give you a little bit of exposure, to what it's like to actually drive in kind of like a realistic-ish scenario. All right, so just to wind down this section, once we get to adulthood, really what we heard the themes being are people want to get their own house. People want to get and meet others, and let's be real, they want to date, form relationships, sex. These are very important things. And then it's also about continuing to stay in shape. So the tools that we have and that we've started to see others recommend are all going to relate towards what does it mean to be an independent adult. So first off, there are videos and there are articles which are written by self-advocates who refer to themselves as autistic. So these autistic individuals write about what it's like to live with roommates. They kind of give you, quote unquote, the real story of the whole experience of being an independent adult on the spectrum. We also have links to the different forums, because we know that when it comes to getting resources and getting skill and getting connected to other peers, there's often a comfort with meeting other people with autism or other people who are neurodivergent. And so if that is something that you are interested in, there are applications that have been really great for connecting to that community. And then we also have some recommendations on workout plans, applications that help with nutrition, that allow you to at least explore foods that are similar to the foods that you like. So if you do have a little more restraint around the diet that you enjoy, you can use some of these apps to find adjacent meals that might be something that is more palatable. So for here we have just one of the YouTubers who's been actually making a whole series around what it's like to, in this case, he is a autistic adult. He prior to the Asperger's reclassification, he referred to himself as being someone with Asperger's. But he writes a lot. He publishes a lot around living and what it's like to have, to balance the dynamic of being someone who's autistic. So he is somebody that has a channel called Asperger's from the Inside. We have a tool called Hiki. This is a great application, which is used both for relationships and friendships, but also dating. Hiki is really focused on the autism community. They have done a great level of reception across the US. So if you're someone here who is interested in online dating or looking for friendships, it is a much safer way to just kind of dip your toes in, because it's pretty chaotic out there. Hiki has been a kind of like a very positive experience for many users. And then when it comes to just staying in shape, BODBOT, BODBOT, this one's interesting because it actually builds a routine for you based off of the tools you have. If you don't have any weights, then it'll just build you a routine that's based off of your body weight. And it's based on, they also have nutrition guides, but we really think it's useful for just be able to create really simple workouts that can be done and that you can incorporate into your day-to-day. All right, last but not least, Mealline. This is one of those tools where it helps you kind of find adjacent recipes. You put in the food you like, put in the food you don't like, and then it gives you some recommendations for things you can start to try out. So it's kind of like a more curated way to experience different kinds of foods at your own pace. And that's something that we like. Lots of resources here. I will not go over these, but we created an appendix of really all these links, as well as additional links that didn't make it onto the page. But this is all the stuff that adults, as well as adolescents who are in the autism community, told us that they found to be useful. The next section is on employment. Before we go further, I saw there's a lot of chats coming through, so I'll pause first. And maybe if there's any questions that you think have come in, we could maybe stop and talk a little bit about anything from independent living before we move to employment.
Yeah, because this is very important, because I want to stop with discussing this one. So first one, we have one of the audience tell us that, particularly in Pennsylvania, the name is called OVR, Office of Vocational Rehab. So parents can contact the regional office for the job training and employment preparation for their children. And the school district, very important, school district are supposed to make connection for family when students with IEP turn 14 and old. Right. So you have the rights. If you want your children have the vocational training, you have the rights on the IEP. Ask the school district, say, I need information, you need to give to me, and then you can make all the connection. Okay, so this is very good important. This is your rights. If your children have IEP, that's your rights. Okay, they cannot deny it. They have to help you information. And of course, Ms. Dai already agreed that gives the slides. So I'm going to share the slides in all the group we all this. Okay, there were lots of information. That's great. But I think this is one of the very important things. We try to talk in a little bit, and I'm so glad that Bryan makes it so pillow here, because for the people on the autism spectrum or neurodivergent, job is not just job. You cannot say, hey, I give my son a job, he can do it. No, never this way. Because job is a part of their life. They have to learning the independent skills. They have learning all the communication skills. They have keep learning all the social skills there, and also the executive function. So without this pillow, their job will not be longer, will be long, keep long, and he will make suffering a lots of challenges there. So this is very important. When we always have some parents tell me that, oh, my daughter just need a job, he can or she can do whatever. The reality is not. And a lot of skill, just like you said, independent living skill, how to make the drill at home, how you take care of pets, how you do volunteer. That's a real skill and the learning. And this is very essential skill. And we can see lots of, we can see some of the people on the IDD Divergent, some of them maybe get out of college and maybe have advanced degree. But with this, you can see when they do a real work in the job there, they are suffering. Their suffering is because some of the foundation is not built up correctly, right? So, so I'm very glad like you put this pillow to tell me that independent skill, living skill, all the skills is very important. This is the foundation. Without those one, he cannot be working, as much he can do. Not the case there, right? So, and now you see lots of the apps, and the particular I think for you, as a background, you have lots of technology come out of this one. So we can really use it. All the apps here, all the video link here, right?
Correct.
But yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say there's a lot here, but we gave a lot because we know that there's so many different life circumstances represented in this call. So hopefully there's at least a small fraction that's relevant to each person on this call.
Yeah. So this is also, everybody, the family member, you can take it back. You can take it back to home. You can think about this one because this is all the foundation is help your children. So whenever your children on the different different level or different background or whatever, this is always one thing is very particular for the Chinese family is that if your child just passing the test on the class, it's not enough, especially for them on the autism spectrum, because lots of skills, soft skill, all those skills need to be built up. And the answer you should have to take many years to help them to build up this one stuff there, include habits, include those stuff there. So, if anybody want to continue, or we can anybody have any idea? Okay. Does your company provide supporting for this team only? No, you're supporting, but how about the mental health? Yeah,
that's a good question, Bernice. So we support really across categories. So we support mental health. We support within autism. What I always say is that although we are autism led, because that was what our company was first founded within, the population that we support is anyone that is experiencing an impediment to achieving a personal professional goal. And so with VR, for example, we support individuals who have not just anxiety or depression, but they also have other conditions that might be chronic. They may also have traumatic brain injury. They might be also older, who are retired and trying to re-enter the workforce. So that's a long way of saying that we support kids, teenagers, adolescents, and adults who have symptoms like anxiety and depression, as well as many of the behavioral and neurodiverse conditions that include things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and the chronic categories.
Okay, that's great. Great news. So tapping, you raise your hands. You can, yeah.
Can I speak Chinese?
Yeah, 对，没问题，讲好了。
OK，黄先生，他这个是不是像 CEDA 这样子的？就是说我刚才进到他的网站，
Yeah.
他们就是说也介绍工作，那是不是说他们有一个 job code 可以 training 的？然后呢，
他们有的。等一下，最后我让他讲他自己的公司的，这就是今天的目的。OK， 讲他们的一些提供的一些服务，包括一些这个资源的东西。那么等他前面讲完以后，我们最后会让他介绍。比这个公司要比 CEDA 要大，所以要更加全面。
然后他们有没有说关于叫那个，比如说 office 的 job 啊？因为没有提到这一个，就是说那种训练。
Yeah, they have different. 等一下他们会说的。等一下他们有 different 的这个，但是它主要是 Brian. So basically your job direction is still from a high technology side, right? You don't.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so our focus is on, we actually say it's any job that requires a digital skill. So that's IT, customer service, graphic design, or business operations. And really, we also have a broad category of jobs that can be done from home, remote jobs. But that's really our specialty is across this side. Correct. More jobs that require the use of technology.
Yeah. 所以他说他主要是跟就是电脑跟科技方面有关的工作，对吧？像我儿子扫地那个呢就没有了，是吧？等一下会让他介绍一些详细的东西。OK， 对。Right. So basically, she's asking, she's local in your city, so she's asking what kind of job. But we will give you time. We give you time. By the finish, I'll ask him to, introduce your program. Hopefully, it's still time. And everybody have the website. You can check in. They can contact your team. Anything. So we got a lot. So let's continue.
Yeah, of course. And so I know there are a few questions coming in. So I'll continue here, and then I'll try to answer them in the next break.
Thank you.
So yeah, what I'll do here is I know it's getting a little bit late, so let me talk a little bit more quickly, because this focuses on employment. And so to get a little more specific from the general framework into more guiding recommendations, at 14, 17, 18, 21, 22 plus, so again, high school, college, adult, we think that there are different themes on employment as well: exploring, specialization, and then opportunities. Basically, when you are in high school, this is about trying to evaluate and shadow and try out different jobs, explore different jobs. When you're in college, this is about trying to learn about careers, maybe even doing like a virtual experience. And then at 22 plus, this is now about getting that job. So when we talk about exploring, the easiest way I kind of describe it is it's about answering some questions. What do I like to do? What am I really good at? What jobs actually marry my interests and my skills together? So the first thing that we have really every family do is we have to go to ONET, O-N-E-T, and they have an assessment called My Next Move. You may have already done this if you're doing. I think there's a question about an IEP and with OBR in Pennsylvania. The reality is that a lot of vocational rehabilitation agencies will use a variation of this assessment to determine interest for their clients. So nothing stops a family from actually doing it themselves. On top of that, we can also have Daivergent, which can provide skills assessments. And then as part of the exploration, there's a really great website called What for Work. And think of this as basically it's like a set of 700 individual jobs. And it literally has somebody who worked in that job explain in detail what is it like. They have videos, they have photos, they have even just the education paths that someone took. And so it's really neat to just kind of see a real story of how someone became a welder, or how somebody became a cybersecurity analyst, or how somebody became a underwater damage recovery diver, which I thought was an interesting one. So that's a set of resources that is great when someone's 14, 17. I always hear sometimes parents say should I encourage my child to get a job when they're that age? My usual response is that it's hard to give a specific guidance of yes or no. I always think that it's 14, 17 years old is no parent should be rushed or feel rushed to have to get their son or daughter a job that early. But for example, in the framework that I shared earlier, there are a lot of different ways to experience what employment is like without necessarily having to get an actual job. Volunteering is an example. There are a lot of home-based exercises that are examples. Even some of the resources that we share here will be some exploration examples. I think when someone gets to college, it's a good time now to start to ask that question. So the questions are, I want to learn more about a specific job. Because by this point, you might have done some assessments and found some areas that are of interest. Maybe I want to try out what it's like to actually be in that job. And then talk to somebody directly. What is it like to do this job? Give me the deets. So we have a few other resources areas. LinkedIn Learning has a great set of resources. So this actually satisfies the deeper dive into training. They actually have 14 quote unquote hot careers. These are jobs that have a lot of interest. It's often post-secondary training. They're free, which is great. So that's a great link. The Forge. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this site, but this is honestly, this is like one of the coolest sites that I come across as a CEO. Think of the Forge as it's creating these 8-hour, 10-hour like virtual experiences, but they're for real companies. So IBM will put a work experience online for someone to experience life as a data analyst for IBM. And then JP Morgan will put a work experience online for someone to try out what it's like to be a banker, an investment banker. And what's crazy is that these experiences are tied directly back to the hiring teams. So they use theforge.com as a way for you to try out what the job is like. But if you do well on it, the results go back to the recruiting team and they reach out to you. So that's something that's really neat, is that you can kind of get a little bit of, you actually can like move a little further in the job funnel with something like this. I hear people refer to it as like a virtual internship or a virtual externship, which it's pretty accurate. And then I know like maybe a lot of people on here who are either my age or younger, they use Reddit. So Reddit, for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of like a social media site, which is based around the idea of like there are topics and there are links that people post, and then people comment on those links to try to create like a conversation. And there are many of these conversations happening all at once under each topic. There's a subreddit, which is an individual topic area called job profiles. And this subreddit is basically people who say, hello, my name is Byron and I'm a CEO. And all they do is they answer questions from people on Reddit about what the job is like. So you can find someone who might be interested in a career that you're passionate about and really get like a specific understanding about what's happening in a way that's like also very like non-confrontational. So like if you get a little anxious, like talking with someone face to face, this is all done through typing. So it's a lot easier. And then finally, we get to 22 plus. Let's be real. We're all on this call because it's about getting jobs, right? So the questions that we answer here, I want to get professional help to find a job. And then we get to internships. I want to dip my toes into a career. And then finally, integrated employment. I'm ready to start my career. So the guidance that we have here and the resources that have been most beneficial, once again, are things like vocational rehabilitation. VR is how you get connected to all the different service providers that provide job coaches. We also provide that. So I know there was a question that was just about to come up, but we have our own job coaches. We have our own job trainers. We have our soft skills teachers as well. Those are specific to Arizona and to Texas, but we also have a national program that is outside of VR that we can offer to families. For the second part, which is internships, or for trying to like explore, like kind of dip your toes into work, there are websites like Upwork and Rat Race Rebellion. So these are websites that list all the opportunities that can be done part-time, project-based, that can be done from home. So again, this is not an exhaustive list of like every opportunity that you should go after. What I want to do is give you something that, if tomorrow you get this burst of inspiration and you want to start to actually make some progress on that employment journey, you can do so with these resources. The last thing is getting a job. So I feel like this is one of the most kind of like the topic that parents have the most questions about. It's hard, right? Like, it's difficult to get a job. We wouldn't be having these conversations if it wasn't. there are some strategies that can be used to help get somebody, who's on the spectrum into a career that has accommodations for them. Probably the easiest way to do this is to start with companies that have dedicated autism hiring programs. So you might have heard of SAP, Microsoft, JP Morgan, Ford, DXC. These are companies that have autism at work hiring. Since it also might be called neurodiversity at work hiring. But if you don't want to have to try to find all these companies by yourself, there are also companies like Daivergent, Mentra, Inclusively, as well as the Neurodiversity Career Connector. These are all websites that specifically look for companies to implement autism-specific hiring or neurodiversity-specific hiring. And that could be a way to help make it easier to apply, because what they do is they create accommodations for interviews. They remove a lot of barriers that can be disruptive to somebody on the spectrum to be able to get a job. They also have made commitments and investments to create work environments that are very conducive for somebody on the spectrum to thrive. So these are just some job boards that really focus on autism. But you may also get great value out of just talking to vocational rehabilitation, because they also work with employers who are trying to hire from this population. So here, a lot of different resources. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but what we found is that these type of strategies are a great way to start to make some short-term progress, on employment. The last section is going to be on socialization. Let me just take a couple minutes again, pause, see if there's any questions, or if you wanted to clarify anything as well before we go to the last section.
I think it's very good. So my one question is this one. I know that they have some of the job looking the site looking for job. Do you know any site just offering those neurodivergent university for internship, or maybe the college students internship? Any site that they can looking for this one?
Yeah, actually, this came up recently because somebody actually emailed me a month ago. So what I always recommend, first of all, is just to start with a level set. Even for someone who doesn't have autism, getting internships can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
But where we've seen some success is a website like Inclusively. So here, for example, like Inclusively, they work with employers who are putting internships on their website. Mentra as well. That's a place where you can get opportunities in front of employers who have internships. But I also wouldn't overlook the Forge. The reason the Forge is interesting is because they also will post these work experiences, and then these work experiences go directly to the HR teams, and so they actually may reach out to folks who perform well on those experiences. I think in terms of internship hiring specifically, the last recommendation I might give is, it's not on here, but there are some nonprofits that work very closely with employers who look for people who are interns. These are nonprofits like Neurodiversity in the Workplace, which I think Evo Libre, if you're on the West Coast, they work with IBM, or they work with Salesforce as well as Microsoft. But I would caution a little bit, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to find people who are really, 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 exceptionally talented in technical areas. And so it can be quite discouraging for families who go to talk to these consultants, and those consultants will promise you, oh, we have all these opportunities. So just to kind of go on with with your eyes wide open. Last recommendation is a group called Rangam, RANGAM.
RANGAM. Okay.
GAM. Rangam.
Okay.
Yeah. They are based out of New Jersey, but they have a nationwide presence. Their whole focus is they try to find employment and placements for people with neurodiversity. So internships are also part of that. So Inclusively, Mentra, Rangam, these are all resources. I won't jump ahead, but one of the things that we do at Daivergent is this whole thing is very it's a lot. There's a lot. So our team is really responsible for trying to facilitate, and help families with coaching. So they can understand how to make sense of like all the resources.
Okay. So one question it's a good chance to ask you is that, I know you just mentioned that the autism at works, especially for the Wall Street, the company like JP Morgan stuff there, right? So I working for Bank of New York Mellon. We also have the autism at works, but I know that first year they only able to hire one.
Yeah.
Second time they only have 5.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that they are not directly open to the market. They turn into some company, some like a Divergent kind of company.
Yeah.
So they are providers of people. So for us is we need to looking for those company who training the employment for the big company, right? Just like a Divergent, look at your company as well, right? So, for example, the young people can contact your company, and the Divergent can customize whatever you do it. Then you look at, hey, maybe you have channel going to the big company, then send over, or maybe you have other project there, right? So right now it's this one, right? Because they're not openly hiding people from the market. I know.
So it's possible I think you're right that sometimes these programs are very small, and so they might only have room for 1 or 2 people. My experience with the company, the Autism at Work, or what they call themselves, the Neurodiversity at Work Roundtable, these companies that really focus on autism hiring, they are hiring from the open market. Actually, their preference is to hire from the open market because they don't have to pay some of the replacement agencies for those. What I think is happening though is that the reason why they hire from their partners is that their partners actually do some of the training.
Yes.
And they do a lot of the soft skills preparation. And so the biggest challenge we get from a lot of parents is that they think, if my child has a college degree and they have and they did well in school and they have technology skills, like they should easily get a job. And then it just gets really discouraging when they keep, not passing interviews. Yeah. And they think, well, there shouldn't be anything wrong. And the reality is that you're right, there shouldn't be anything wrong, but the system is still not perfect. Yeah. So what we have recommended for them, where they've seen success, is there's often a reason why there's some kind of block in the interview process. Yeah. But getting their child, and I think I call vocational rehabilitation, it's not a benefit. I call it a perk. It's one of the very few perks that the autism community gets that other communities don't. Yes. So I like to think of it as like this is an enhancement on getting dedicated dollars that it's a privilege to be able to get this. Yeah. So those families that recognize it as a perk, as a privilege, not like as like a disability or benefit or insurance, that framing is really important because it's more likely that their families will pursue services with the understanding that it's about strengthening somebody and making them even stronger, not as like correcting a weakness. So I use this as again another broken record. Apply for voc rehab. If you have a bad experience, apply again, and or reach out to me, and I can get you into our team, and we can help to apply in a more effective way. But those are the ways that you can get into those companies that help to place into some of these different employers, or get you in front of nonprofits who have these special relationships with employers. They want to see some of those budgets that can be allocated for their services. Yeah, I think it's very important that from some of my friends, we see some of the young people who is able to passing the interview just like a regular guy, like people there. They find probably it's a very good job there. But it turned out that during the job, those young people on the spectrum, maybe a little bit light or Asperger or something, they facing tremendously pressure. And many of them just cannot handle the time because they put a lot of pressure themselves. Yeah. Of course, the challenges come from everywhere, like communication, all the stuff there. But this is very important. We saw more and more companies like this one. They want to hire some people already prepared, like JP Morgan or something. I would rather pay a little fee or something
but
Right,
I can get somebody already going through this one. He already ready. He already knows the challenge ahead of. I don't want to pick up in college just based on interview or resume and put on the workplace. Then it turned out it's not good for everybody, right? So
right.
this is one thing is I think it's very important with learning from a couple of years experience here,
Exactly. I think also you might have seen this in families. I know definitely have researched this, but there are universities which have special pipelines as well to employers. JP Morgan has a special relationship with the University of Delaware. So if you're a parent who's really, if you're really or if you're somebody who's autistic or on the spectrum, and you really have that dream of working at JP Morgan, part of your strategy might be to look at schools like University of Delaware and look at their Autism Scholars Program. Because JP Morgan has funded a 10-year program with University of Delaware to create a dedicated pipeline to hire neurodiverse talent from that university.
Yes.
And they basically just create a curriculum for JP Morgan graduates, So then Drexel, another great example, a university has a lot of great relationships. There are definitely specific colleges and universities that have more foundation in creating good graduates who are part of their autism programs. Drexel, Delaware, trying to think of others. I know Cornell. I actually know Cornell is actually quite effective. Landmark is like the more kind of generalized autism and disability college, but I would actually look at Drexel and St. John's and University of Delaware as as actually really progressive schools. If you're thinking about college.
Yes. So one thing is what particular mention is for example, in my company, Bank of New Mellon, we have a group, diversity group, which is all the employment either with disability or maybe disability children. We have a group there. So one of our task is we help the human resources recruiting people on the Daivergent, maybe so we go with them together. We can when interview, we can suggest, he's on the spectrum. You cannot just face-to-face interview, that don't work, something. So we do it to help a little bit, right? But it's still that people able to hire by this company very, very little, which is just a drop from the ocean, something that doesn't really help lots of the majority. Okay?
Correct. And that's why I think we're talking today is that this is trying to give more resources beyond just the top 0.001%.
Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of wrap us up, the last category that we see that we asked our self-advocates, was socialization and friendship. So at each age, there are these different types of social resources that are available. So when you're in high school, this is more about practicing social skills. So I know families can be a little hesitant to just have online interaction. So there are different games and different video-based exercises that could be helpful. In college, though, this is about great independence and meeting with peers. So we have recommendations on forums, on different scheduled groups, and online communities. And then last but not least is really adulting, self-advocacy. So this is where you start to also not just talk about finding other peers, but also creating friendships across, neurotypical populations. And that's something that I think is very important. So from 14 to 17, we found YouTube channels that are all about building confidence. There are social skilling games, which are really, I think, very novel, which are basically just games based around building social skills. And then there are more teen-specific groups for high school students. This video here, again, School of Life, this is a really cool channel. It literally takes, it almost like takes concepts that seem very obvious to someone that's neurotypical, but makes them very explicit and linear for somebody who might be neurodivergent. So I even find it helpful because it just like puts into words some of the harder things like, what is self-esteem? What does it mean to have like confidence? And actually like make it something that can be accessible to a neurodivergent mind. We've got a great colleague who's building a game called Social Cipher. Since this presentation was created, I think she's actually released it, and it's gotten really great buzz. So go to socialcyphergame.com. This is like a very, very well designed and actually high quality Mac and PC experience that is used to just like help to introduce these skills in a much more engaging way for someone who's a teenager. And then finally, we have a few links to different websites that host teen groups. So there are different online communities that can be facilitated and moderated so that it's a safe space. OutSchool, Divergent, of course. So here are just some of the snapshots. So Social Cypher is all about building social emotional learning. And the games that they have are not just like these like one-off little like silly games. These are like very fully fleshed, like multi-month kind of like engaging opportunity, engaging kind of experiences. This is just some of the videos, how to be confident, how to learn oneself more. So these channels that we find are, they're also engaging. And so they could be of really great interest for a high school student. If you're in college, this is about getting into your community. So forums, online groups, scheduled sessions for people who are on the spectrum. This one's actually pretty fun because there's a lot of really good websites once you start to get to like this age group. Ron Planet, this is all about gathering folks who are on the spectrum together. It's a little old school because it's like not really like updated, but it's just like a fun, kind of like a very, like one of the longest running forums, I think, in existence. Asperger's Experts is also an online community, which is more, I'd say, kind of low support individuals, but you may find that to be really a great way to get to in front of your peers. I then always talk about Reddit. Reddit is awesome because there are subreddits for women who are on the spectrum. There are subreddits specific for young adults. And then if you're still on Facebook and you're this age, kudos to you because that's not that common. But if you happen to be, there are Facebook communities too. That can be used to kind of group yourself with other peers. And then the final one, which I like, is called AANE. This is Autism Asperger's Network. And they are a nonprofit that have a lot of book clubs, game nights, social groups that are specific for the autism community. And they're very like well run. I would look at AANE as probably one of the best and highest quality free resources that exist for this community. They do have some paid ones, but they also open up some like weekly free ones for young adults. So we have a link there for you to check it out. This here you can just see like there's even opportunities to meet up in person. That's a big deal, I think. It's not just virtual. It's also giving you a chance to actually engage with folks who might be in your city. So I think a lot of families may find that useful, or a lot of students, a lot of self-advocates may find that a way to meet other people. Last but not least, adulting and self-advocacy. So I'm going to refer back to a few other apps that we find. We make the assumption that at this age, the interest is more romantic and probably around not just platonic relationships anymore. So this is about getting in front of apps. This is about joining advocacy groups to be able to build self-advocacy for the organization, for the community, as well as to give you opportunities to integrate with other neurotypical audiences. So I called out this tool called Hiki, H-I-K-I. I really still stand behind it. There's another one called Making Authentic Friendships. So this is a little bit more platonic. So if you're looking to date, Hiki is great. Making Authentic Friendships, more useful for someone looking for friends. And then we've linked to a few really well-respected nonprofits, Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network, AANE. We push all of our folks to consider volunteering and going out and being more embedded within the advocacy world, because we find that there's a lot of fulfillment that comes from there. And then finally, meetup.com, Toastmasters. There are autism-specific communities, but there's also mixed communities in there. I love Toastmasters because it's just like, basically you're just given like a script that you have to build yourself, and then you give a speech. But it's a really good way to build public speaking skills. So here are some of the sites: ASAN, AWN, Making Authentic Friendships. You can kind of get a feel for like what the application's like. And then once again, here you go. Just a lot of different communities. There's Reddit, there's Discord, Take a look at this on your spare time. But if you're a college student or you're somebody who's on the spectrum and you're listening to this, I really think this is actually a great place to start, just to kind of go through them one by one and see which one actually hits you, in a more positive way, because it's not all going to work, but chances are you'll find something that actually fits the bill. All right, that's all the second section. I really didn't want to make this a pitch. I didn't want to make this a pitch about Daivergent because I find a lot more fulfillment just talking about the overall resources that exist. But we are a company that also focuses on this community, and we have something called Reach, which I think a few people have asked about. Reach coaching is basically our coaching service that we offer. And we always get asked, is this a good idea? Is it a fit for my family? I'll just give you a rundown of what this is. Reach is an online coaching service. It is all about preparing someone to become self-sufficient, helping adults and adolescents who have autism, as well as other neurodivergent conditions, achieve personal and professional goals. I want to make one thing very clear, which is that we are not a job placement company, which means that if you're looking at Reach and saying, hey, I want to get my son, my daughter, or I want to get myself a job, that's not like something we guarantee. And it might not be a fit if that's the case. I would rather frame Reach as it's trying to recognize this as a journey, and that there are going to be a lot of skills built around independent living, social skilling, as well as employment. They're all part of that journey. So what a family gets in Reach is this weekly coaching from one of our professionals. We call them virtual support professionals. These VSPs meet with the candidate once a week. So this is not like a parent thing. This is actually just a one-on-one opportunity for someone on the spectrum to meet with someone who just gets it and receives coaching from them. The programs that we have, these are all curriculums that are based around our evidence-based library of life skills, social skills, and vocational skills. Our curriculum is very practical. It's just really about real-life exercises, real-life experiences. We also provide a benefits specialist who helps to support families on the disability benefits process. So you're also going to have someone who will just answer questions and help guide you to apply for things like vocational rehabilitation. And of course, we host a ton of online social groups because this is just a big part of what it means to be in Daivergent. It's to create community. So it's one-to-one, it's year-round. This is our program that we have across all 50 states. We have something special if you're in Arizona or Texas, because we're a provider with vocational rehabilitation. That training that we can do in Arizona and in Texas is much more focused. In those states, we actually can help you to find a job and actually place you in careers. We're trying to get approved in other states, but those are the first two we got approved in. So I just want to give you two examples of people we support. Marissa, she's a 19-year-old. She is someone who has autism. She has also some social anxiety, and she doesn't drive. So her main priority is she wants to start making friends, more friends, and she also wants to start working at some point, but she's still a little younger. So if she's part of our Reach coaching service, the first thing she does is she gets matched to a coach. They're going to work together to plan out those professional and personal goals. Marissa might actually ask a parent to join as well, if she's comfortable with it. And they can work together to create those goals. Now, let's say that professional goals are more important for her. Well, the next thing that might happen is she might get assigned a job exploration pathway. So her and her coach are going to spend the next 60 days exploring careers together. At the same time, the coach is also going to assign her to a social group based on her interest. So she might be passionate about something like music. We have dedicated social groups around different styles of music, as well as different types of conversations, debates versus like playing together. This is what is Marissa's plan, but it's going to be very different from Jacob. Jacob is a 31-year-old. He has ADHD. He has a learning disability. And he's living at home. His goals are to become more independent. So when he gets matched to a coach, his pathway is not going to be like Marissa. It's not going to be around music, socialization. His is really going to be around life skills. So he might start a 90-day curriculum with his coach. And then after that, continue into a job exploration pathway. And once that's completed, he may go back and continue another life skills pathway. And so this is trying to indicate that getting a job is not the be all end all. It's really just one step of a journey towards self-sufficiency and independence. We've been doing this for about 5 years. We were founded back in 2017. We have about 600 folks who have gone through our programs, who have had favorable outcomes. We are in the states of Arizona and Texas. Our customers really look at Daivergent as a way to become independent. So we have a few testimonials here. I won't read all of them, but Leon, he was somebody who was a client with us. He's 24 years old. For him, Daivergent has better prepared me for working in a group, challenged me to be more efficient in finding information. He's proud. We actually got him a job because of that training that we did with him. He's learning a lot: corporate work etiquette, expectations, sprint planning. Kristen, she was a mom. She had a 26-year-old son who was in our program. So my son had been looking for a job before he started with Daivergent, but the help that he received took his job search to another level. Happy to say he was hired by a big bank. And then Joanna, this is someone who wasn't looking just for a job. And again, I got to be clear, although we help with employment and help with jobs, that's really not the only thing that we should be thought of. So for Joanna, my son is more upbeat. He gets up earlier, he looks forward to those coaching sessions, and he'd been feeling a bit hopeless before. It's taking a lot of stress off of the parent. So I spent all this time talking about the advantages and the benefits we have for the candidate who might be on the spectrum. But on top of that, this is actually a resource for mom and dad. This is a resource for parents too, because we want to make sure you feel like your son, your daughter is continuing to grow and just keeps growing. That's, I think, a feeling that maybe a lot of us struggle with. And we don't want that to be a reason why we don't try to do something different, right? So what we're trying to do here with Daivergent is see if we can build self-confidence, see if we can build towards getting employment, see if we can build towards getting independence to become a realistic and attainable goal for our loved ones. For us, the actual Reach coaching itself, it's 30-day free trial. It starts at $99 a month. If you're in Arizona or you're in Texas, we have the options to be able to actually cover a lot of our training through vocational rehabilitation. So there is no out-of-pocket cost. So I'm happy to talk and answer more questions about that. But our whole mission is that we are helping neurodiverse individuals and their families build a life of independence. Independence means social satisfaction. It means independent living. It means getting a job. So it's all those three buckets together, working in harmony. So if you went through this presentation and you find this is interesting, or you might want to get into some more resources, the next step that we usually say is to get onto a call with one of our specialists. So I have a link here. I also put a link in the chat if you want to look into that and learn more about our programs. But if you can believe it, we're done. Today, what we talked about the general framework. So we walked through the story of Lisa about what it's like to just get somebody to enter into an employment mindset. We then talked a lot about the different resources that can allow a family to start working short term to get some of these start making some progress on that employment search. And the last thing is I shared about Reach. So if it does happen to be something that you're interested in, amazing. But if it's not, I hope that what you will do is use this presentation and the resources in it to find your own journey and be able to start to make progress on employment. Daivergent is just one of many solutions you're going to come across. If I can end with one thing, it's just to say this. We are here to really help self-advocates, to help parents find the resources and apply the strategies they need to maximize their potential and live independently. So with that, I really appreciate all of you making so much time so late at night to listen to me. I put our website here. I put an email that you can reach out to us. reach@Daivergent.com. That's the program. hello@Daivergent.com. You email that and you'll get in touch with one of us on our team. And then Bing will send out this presentation. But if you click on that, this is kind of like a little simple button. But if you click on this, it'll take you directly to our call scheduling page so you can learn a little more. And again, we do a 30-day trial because it's very important that you also feel like this is a fit for your family. But this presentation will get sent out to everybody here. Before we end for tonight, I want to make one last ask to see if anyone has any questions or may want to get clarifications before we break. And so being the last time tonight, I'd love to see if there's anything else that has come up since I started talking.
Yeah, that's great. I will see, let you drink something just to make comfortable here. And 如果大家有什么问题，现在可以问我们，大概可以Brian is 他生病了，所以我们也是
没问题，没问题，
真的没问题，带病坚持工作 ，OK， 那OK，so总的来说generally is that he have lots of information. If you want to follow up with Divergent, of course you can check their website, you call them, all the stuff you can do, right? Or anybody have a question, you can speak out, raise hands, anything. Okay.
Hi, I have a question about the REACH program. Hi, my name is Adela. I was just wondering, the REACH program, does it cover the high school students?
Yes. So REACH begins at 14 years old. We don't have an age cap on it. And really what the intention for REACH is that it's personalized and individualized to whomever is coming in. So in high school, it may be more towards transition topics, but we work closely with both the student as well as the family and parents to help create that plan.
Right, because a lot of I know a lot of kids on the spectrum, especially the high functioning ones. They started the struggle. Honestly, the struggle and challenge all started from high school, and they usually have some resources in high school. It's pretty abundant, and from school counseling service, and then they live at home, and the parents can always help with the various things. But it's college and independent living is a completely different story, and a lot of times actually the kids struggled through the high school and has a very high rate of not able to finish the college. So I think if the problem, if they address the problem starting from the high school and then working with you guys in the program, instead of trying to find help at the last minute and before dropping out of college, that would be better. You will have a chance to start to know them from high school.
Adele, you're absolutely right. What I've noticed actually is that some of the students who began with us in high school and then actually transitioned to a college experience, one of the things that they wanted was they wanted the continuity, where a parent had the same. It's the same coach who happens in high school and goes into college as well, just because we've been around for so long. That's something that it actually is pretty rare, which I didn't realize. So just having that resource, be able to be with the family, and like you said also, Adela, it's also about making sure that there's that confidence that can get built as well, that there's a kind of the feeling that there's always somebody who's kind of got your back. It's one of the intangible benefits for REACH. So for what it's worth, I think you're right. We see a lot of drop off when it comes to students entering college, because it's a very different environment. There's a lot of structure, and many colleges don't have the same level of, I see, unfortunately, some of the guide rails that the high schools have. And we see students, often have to, try a few times before they can graduate college. But if they have, we think that we have the right coaching resources behind you, if you have the right emotional supports as well behind you, this is something that could really make a difference in that success.
So in your tracking record for the college students, you mostly focus on sort of like a life coach, right? And those independent skills, like self-management skills, maybe time management or social skills training. Is that correct?
Correct. So although that doesn't preclude us from still supporting with employment. And so something that happens in the high school population is that we still introduce different vocational sandbox, we call it virtual sandboxes or vocational sandboxes, which are career explorations and job shadowing. So that still can happen even in a high school setting. But independent living and social skills tend to be more common because unfortunately, work isn't always the highest priority when someone's still in school. And there's always a feeling that there's more time than there might really be before school ends.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I saw there's a few questions I saw that came through. I'll just try to answer very quickly. So we were asked, can we talk more about the scheduling and the personal finance budget skills? Yeah, just to give like we can go into a lot of different directions with that, but the schedule, we have a library of content that we've created, which is specific around giving, or really three types of things: a lecture, an exercise, and a discussion. So a lecture can be thought of as any material that's more about teaching somebody about something in more of like a one-on-one or a tutoring session kind of style. So that could be a video, or that could be like an article. An exercise is a piece of interactive experience. So when it comes to scheduling, one of our interactive experiences is actually to have that person actually build a schedule for someone else. So that gives them a way to start to use some of the skills they learn in lecture to implement and actually have something hands-on. For personal finance, one of the gamified ways is we pull in Bonsai to have them actually go through some of the modules where they are literally trying to build a household budget for a hypothetical family that they are actually managing. So they actually have to run a household. And then I talked about not just the exercise, but the discussion. The discussion is, in some cases, it's a way for them to share back, what they've been doing with their VSP. So that model, which is lecture, exercise, discussion, this is a way to do reinforcement learning, where we, introduce the concept, practice the concept, instill the concept. So that's how we do with scheduling and personal finance skills. And then Meng Feng asked, did you mention St. John College has some program for ASD students at that college in New York State? I'm sorry, actually, I believe that should have actually St. Joseph's was the college, and that's out of Pennsylvania. But thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. And Tom asked, can we pay training through self-direction? I'll be upfront. We've wanted to try to figure this out for a while. We've had a few families who try to get us into self-direction. I think it's possible. So short answer is I'm happy to work with families on this because that would be something great if we could get that covered through a budget. But candidly, I haven't managed to get through yet. But we can have our team work together with you to get it done. Group coaching or one-on-one. This is one-on-one coaching. Does your company collaborate with the school team? My son is going to high school in fall, and we're working on his transition plan. Some families choose to have the virtual support professional collaborate. I would say that it's more common in a situation where we are in voc rehab already, only because the reach meetings are once a week. So we do have the ability to add on additional time with the VSP. That can be part of a separate conversation. So short answer is we can have the VSP collaborate, but the company itself does not collaborate because the company is not providing the coaching directly. Then we were asked, could you talk a little bit more about the material used for coaching? I guess it depends on the individual goal, but in general, how does the coach work with the client for how long? This is a really good question because the material that we use is a combination of our own proprietary curriculum as well as curriculums that we have from our validated partners. So we have our own life skills, social skills, vocational skill trainings that we've created over the last 5 years. And it's made available to the VSP along with teaching guides. So when VSP meets with a candidate, or meets with, in this case, your son or your daughter, what they're really trying to do is understand the goals and then actually pull in the appropriate curriculums that can fit that goal closely. When you're asking how long the coach works with a client, this is one of those unsatisfying answers, but it depends. We do have families who come in and say, I just want you to work for about 3 months because we hear my daughter's gonna get a job, and I want you to just make sure she stays on the job for the next 3 months, because once she does that, she'll get comfortable and she can kind of figure it out on her own. We've been around for 5 years. We've got families who've been with us for 4 years. So they actually see Daivergent as part of an ongoing check-in, an accountability resource. It's almost like they have someone who they can talk to and collaborate on, for their child's success. And that person can be sort of seen as a more neutral person to make recommendations, to make suggestions that would be more likely to be heard by a child, that might not be as likely to be heard from mom and dad. Just kind of calling out the reality. So it's really going to be individualized to what is the goal. And what we always say is that because goals change and goals can evolve, the VSPs are intended to be individualized because they should be able to adapt and evolve along with the needs of that child. Our VSPs come in with degrees from special education, psychology, counseling, therapy, often with between 5 to 10 years of existing disability service experience. So what we are doing is we're actually we're creating a global team of the best disability service providers across the US as well as across the globe to be able to work with our families. Kelly asked, are you a provider agency for VR in Texas? Yes, we help with we are approved for job placement, vocational evaluation, soft skill, what they call personal and social adjustment training, as well as work experience placements. Wenjing asks, do you provide services in New York? We'd like to. I'm based in New York City. I'm actually in Manhattan. But unfortunately, Access VR does not have requests for applications for new providers until 2025. So we are not currently approved for service in New York under VR. But I believe it was Tamping who said, can we pay for training through self-direction? If you are a self-direction client, there may be a way to cover through Medicaid instead. Tommy also asked, what is the difference of Divergent between Divergent and a special education high school in travel, training, and social skill? There's a lot of questions there. I would say that probably the best thing I can do is maybe answer that offline. But we differ from a special education high school in that a special ed high school is going to be very intensive and focused on curriculums and trainings within their programs. What Divergent is about is there are going to be a lot of things that you want to work on, which just fall outside of a traditional special education curriculum. Some of the most common ones I always get are, I have someone who wants to just make friends. And I want them to I also want someone to help facilitate friendships for them, for my son or daughter. And we know that schools, for whatever reason, don't do that. So the VSPs can actually make connections to other people who are in reach and actually have those meetings take place. Which is not something that actually we differentiate. So we always say that Divergent is asking the families directly, what are the goals? Whereas special education high schools, they have a set curriculum that they must teach against. So the flexibility is something that's unique to Divergent. Didi asks, do you provide service in Virginia? We do provide it through Reach. We are currently in the middle of discussions with DARS, which is the Virginia Vocational Rehabilitation, but we're not currently approved yet. Kelly asks, are you a pre-ETS provider? You called out the one thing that I wish we'd had. We are not a pre-ETS provider yet. Texas also does not have an active contract looking for new providers. But we can support customers in Texas through our other services. So you don't have to necessarily be a pre-ETS provider to support students in high school or to provide some of the training that pre-ETS provides. So we can actually find other ways to use our services to cover support for you and your family.
Lots of information.
Yeah.
So I heard that basically on the two states, you provide lots of service. One is Texas, one is Arizona, right?
Correct.
Okay, it's like a full service come out there. Okay, I believe that we have more Chinese families in Texas than Arizona. And also, talking about the self-direction, does we can using the transition part to the pay for the job coaching something as well, right? I'm not sure is that one.
It's a good question. It's a good question because I've never actually. We've had families ask about using self-direction, but because we're not a Medicaid vendor, we're not a DDD vendor yet.
Right.
We're not a DD vendor yet. My understanding is that it still can be covered, but we'd have to work with the family and the budget facilitator to be able to finalize that. So short answer is I think it's possible. I would have to bring in actually my program director to have that conversation with a family, but I'm more than happy to have that conversation with my team.
I'm doing the budgeting for my son right now. So for self-direction, what my broker told me is, at least my understanding is, there's two parts. So usually it's very hard to approve before 18, and it's pretty hard in general in 21 as well, because they expect the school get involved. There are some programs, but after a certain age, and they started to prove it, and they work, as the responsibility shifted more into the OPWDD side.
That makes sense. Actually, actually that explains a lot why you were seeing sort of more receptiveness when adults come and approach us.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, they said if DOE can pay it, they will not pay it. So that's only one thing. Okay. So I think another question is somebody asking for in New York, what is the university provide the program to autistic student? As I know, is Adelphi University from the Garden City, Long Island.
Right, the
they have a pretty
program.
good program. Of course, it's a private school, but they even have a job coach for their autistic program. It's called Bridge, I think.
Bridges.
Yeah, whatever. So this is one of them. You can search for stuff there. Okay. Let me see if anybody question, you want to raise hands. If you want to speak Chinese, okay. If 你要用中文提问没问题，我们可以帮你翻译。Okay.
洪大哥，你说是什么 Adelphi 呀？是 school 吗？
对啊，是一个大学，私立大学在Garden City， 在 Long Island。
Adelphi College， 他有工作给这个自闭症的，有 job training。
这个是一个大学的课程，给自闭症的孩子上大学用。但是上完大学他们会有 job coach 帮你找工作。This is the news， 这是新闻，我们上次看到，他们前面几届毕业以后都找不到工作，所以大学又去安排他们 job coach 之类的。OK， 但你要先上完大学毕业以后。他才会给你。
So I have a quick question.
Okay.
Yes.
谢谢。
Your voice is 那个。
对不起。
对，你说。好。No.
Okay, so my question is that. So how is this the Adelphi program you talk about? Is it similar different? Because I was looking for a program like from some university in our area. We live in upstate New York. So I think the program, most of the programs is that they provide is not taking courses. It's not credits. So it's that most of college life experience programs. So they have some pair with some college students and then maybe give them some job training, but not necessarily they mentioned that, they will, provide or guarantee they will, help them to find a job. So I don't know how is it different from the Adelphi program, because it seems like it's a program and then when they graduate, they consider college graduate. But the one that I haven't recalled, but I think from what their discussion sounds to me like maybe just like they offer a certain time of program. The student was there, experience the campus life, being a college students. So, because my son is only 15, so I'm still exploring that. I haven't gone into that much yet.
Yeah, so the general idea I give to you is that when you're talking about the college for autism, they're basically two different kinds. One is for degrees, one is not for degrees, for inclusion, which is, you can just have some experience, learning for independent skills, everything there. So even for the degree program, probably only one or two college will offer the job training or job coach service. Most of them, majority of them, they don't care. They just want to get money, give you a degree. If you get it, then everything your own. So Adelphi is the first one I know. They gives, at least they thinking about that. After you graduate, they still try to help you to find a job. And the majority of them, they don't have that service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Brian, how are Brandon doing? Do you get some job for him to do?
I'd like to. Brandon's currently in. Actually, I don't know if he's still on. He might have gone to sleep. It's too late. So he lives in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
He's in a day rehabilitation program right now. My
Okay,
hope is that
they will have it. Okay.
exactly, yeah. So my hope is that we can start to also talk about transition with his coordinator as well.
Okay.
To start including it.
Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good to have something to do over there, you know, because the first time I must see you, he's doing school, right? He was still in school, so he just
That's right, yeah.
So okay, that's great. This is I think we are right now. We try to help the kids with limited function, which is that means they don't go to college, you know. So that is the level of the child, the young people. We still put the day program as their major. You know, that's the biggest one. Yeah. So once they have a day program, then we can looking for the other chance, you know, training, living skills, something like that. But it is very important for them to have this day program.
That's right. Yeah.
You know. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I have another question.
Yeah.
So I just don't know for all the program, like, you know, you're talking about here for kids going beyond high school, you know, graduation. Are we talking about the kids, you know, our kids, they actually got the region diploma, like, you know, the formal high school diploma, or they get in our New York State, we call local diploma. I mean, for people with, you know, disabilities. So I just don't know, are we talking about kids on both track, or, you know, just the kids not passing the region exam and then they go with a local diploma, or they get the CDAT. I think in our place we call CDAT, some credentials from high school. We're kind of talking about both.
I think
because I'm assuming you're looking for a job, right?
No.
You're supposed to get a high school diploma, or
no. If you're looking for traditionally, if you're looking for a job in a company in the United States, they're asking for high school diploma, right? But if your children have IP, like most of us have IDD, then they have lots of job opportunities there. They don't need it to be a high school diploma. Okay, they have other way to going around there, different kind of jobs there.
Okay.
So if you're talking about the diverging Bryan's company, I think they're supporting all the people with or without the regional diploma, without high school. I think you know they just find a way to help the child or the young man to get away to that.
Okay. So then we kind of focus more about their job skills, and then like some socialization skill, and then ability to be able to fit into the work environment, right? Not looking at their academics, you know, skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we got a personal advice for you, if you have you have to choosing academically get the diploma or you get the skills, I would say skill more important than diploma, because even he got the diploma, region diploma, he don't have a skill, he still cannot find a job or keep a job, you know. So, right. Okay. 还有谁 anybody want to have a question there? We got the last few minutes. Also, Bryan, you know, if in future, if you come here again, if for example, if you have some case study, you know, so you know, whatever you want, because I think lots of people want to know more. How you guys doing? How, you know, particular, because I think lots of the family here, parents here, they want to match. They want to, hey, look, you give us lots of example like this. Hey, look, my son looks like this.
Right.
So if you can do that, you can do that, right? So let's talking about, you know, if you have any chance, then we're welcome to get a more detail, you know, so we can just give them lots of, because I think most of the families, they still don't know what their children can do, what is the option there, what does that one here, right? And so it's a great. This is I know it's very hard. It's like it's the hardest the challenge for the autistic population is employment. Hopefully we can get this, okay? And yeah, this one I have a recording. We're gonna post on the AFI website, on the other website, and we will send you out the documentation. With us, anybody want it, either from the WeChat group or email or anything you want it, we'll give to you. Okay, so again, thank you. Thank you very much. And also say hello to your dad for your support, Brandon, and we're so glad to see you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I wish you all good, man.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And I know I appreciate this. I appreciate just everyone taking the time to hear, and I think it's just, I commend everyone just for taking the time to already thinking about employment. I think the earlier you start, the better. And I will make the case again, vocational rehabilitation. That's the one thing I want everyone to just take away.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. 谢谢大家，谢谢大家。OK， 如果有什么问题，我们可以私下再讨论，再那个的，好不好 ？OK， 好，谢谢大家，谢谢大家，
谢谢，
好，大家谢谢，好，谢谢，
谢谢，
谢谢您，拜拜。